attempting to derail the move towards one world government. You see, people at this table come from very different ideological and political backgrounds. Now, what unites us, however, is that we're all patriots. All those who opposed us, those who work for secret societies, who have sold their nations out for a pound of flesh, they're traitors. Not only traitors of their people and nation, but also traitors of humanity as a whole. Now, the subject of this press conference is Bilderberg towards One World Company Limited. About 650 years ago, the economy of Europe had collapsed into what is known as Europe's New Dark Age, the greatest economic and demographic collapse of Europe since the collapse of the Roman Empire. But then in the middle of the 14th century, much of the power of the oligarchy who ruled the world then suddenly and abruptly disintegrated. This disintegration erupted as a sudden chain reaction collapse of the worst financial bubble of debt speculation in history until now, that is, when the banking houses of Bardi and Peruzzi went under. This disintegration or collapse of the Lombard debt bubble caused a collapse in the power amongst the oligarchical families. Now, what does it have to do with Bilderberg? You see, modern history supersedes medieval history at that point or moment that the institutions which singularly distinguish modern from medieval were put into place. What were those institutions? Well, on the one hand, the conception of the modern nation-state republics under the government of natural law. Second is the central role of the fostering of scientific and technological progress as the mandate given to the republic. Now, these two ideals represent a crucial argument. Their existence as institution in any part of Europe changed everything in all of Europe because these institutions increased the rate of development of per capita and per square kilometer of mankind over nature. So no nation could afford not to progress, not to develop for the fear of being left hopelessly behind. And the first success occurred in France with Louis XI, who doubled per capita income of France and defeated all of France's enemies. Louis XI's success sparked a chain reaction in other nations, beginning with England with Henry VII and also elsewhere. Now, another key idea to come out of Council of Florence, which was later implemented in the United States, is a universal principle of general welfare, on which all of modern civilized society is based. Now, general welfare doesn't mean a useless bum sitting on a couch eating a pizza, slobbering all over himself, watching television while he's waiting for the government check to arrive. It is a question of immortality. What's the intention of the existence of man and government? It's to provide for the welfare of future generations of mankind, to assure survival as a species. The principle of the general welfare, as expressed in the summation in the preamble of the Federal Constitution of the United States, is the fundamental law. So how is it related to today? You see, the people such as the Bilderbergers, what they want is an empire, and that's what globalization is, just another word for an empire. And too many people believe that in order to have an empire, you need money. You have all heard the phrase, the money elite. But you see, money is not a determinant of wealth and the economy. Money doesn't make the world go around. Money has no intrinsic value. Human mind affects that development. And this is how we, the people, and mankind is measured. This is the true meaning of immortality. What separates us from animals is our ability to discover universal physical principles. It allows us to innovate, which subsequently improves the lives of people by increasing the power of men over nature. You see, what Bilderberg are doing right now in the world economy, they're destroying it on purpose. Now, this isn't the first time either. This was already done in the 14th century. We're talking about the New Dark Age. 30% of the population then was wiped out. And one of the things we're seeing right now, the concepts of zero growth, zero progress, these are not new concepts. Bilderbergers and their cohorts, they know exactly what they're doing. Back in 1973, Club of Rome came up with a paper called The Limits to Growth. CFR, Council on Foreign Relations, that's the American cousin to the Bilderberg group, they came up with a Project 1980s paper promoting controlled disintegration of the world economy. And of course, Bilderberg themselves, in the mid-1990s, came up with a very interesting concept, demand destruction. Now, how do you destroy demand? Well, you destroy demand by destroying the world economy on purpose. You see, We're talking about the question of leadership and the question of immortality. All of the leaders of society, especially in times of crisis, are leaders because they measure up to some approximation of that standard. Now, I'm not talking about a scientific problem or economic problem, but rather a morality question, a question of immortality. Do we as nation states, as people of the planet, believe in the future of mankind? And what kind of future will that be in 100, 200, or even 500 years from now? Do we have a right to dream? And if we have a sense of purpose for being here, then the bad guys simply can't win. And finally, in closing, I'm talking again about nation-state republics. We should be a fraternity of nations, of sovereign nation-states, united by a common purpose for humanity. Until we can bring mankind into the age of reason, history will be shaped in actuality, not by the wills of masses of humanity, but by a mere handful who, for the purposes of good and evil, steer the fate of mankind, generally as herds of cows are steered to and from the pasture, and occasionally also to the slaughterhouse. I'll stop right now and welcome your questions. Thank you very much.